All right, get this. We're diving into a company that makes backpacks. Backpacks! But here's the thing. Their story is way more interesting than your average JanSport.
What's wild is how Cora Spink represents this quiet revolution in how businesses can actually operate. They're out here proving that sustainability and ethics aren't just marketing buzzwords.
You're telling me we've got their About page, blog posts, even a piece about their approach to physical stores. Where do we even start with all this?
Their origin story is pretty telling. Gives you a good feel for their values right off the bat.
Okay, so rewind to 2004. They started as a university project about the environmental impact of fashion. Can you imagine tackling that back then?
Exactly. 2004, they were ahead of the curve on sustainability before it was even a trend. Talk about vision.
And get this, they funded their launch by selling stuff out of their family's garden shed. Seriously, who does that?
Shows you a level of commitment you don't see every day, especially in those early days when a business is just finding its feet.
I'm looking at their About page right now, and it's not just marketing fluff. They're serious about this ethical, sustainable thing, like weirdly serious. What's the example from the blog post? The one about paying suppliers.
Right, the money makes the world go round post. They refuse to use credit terms with their suppliers.
Wait, really? Isn't that like standard business practice?
It is. But they'd rather experience slower growth than compromise their principles and put pressure on the people who make their products. They talk about how credit terms can create this imbalance of power, where suppliers feel pressured to meet demands, even if it means cutting corners.
Wow. So they're willing to slow down their own growth just to make sure everyone in the supply chain is treated fairly. That's some next-level commitment.
Exactly. And it speaks to their long-term vision. They're not interested in a quick buck. They're building something sustainable, literally and figuratively.
And that brings us to what might be their most radical idea. Every person we work with is happy. It's a bold statement. Are they actually pulling it off?
Well, it's one thing to say it. It's another to actually do it. And they're making some interesting moves. In 2022, they established their own dedicated workshop in India.
Instead of just working with existing factories, they went and created their own. That seems like a huge undertaking.
It was. But it gave them more control over working conditions, wages, the whole 9 yards. They even talk about how it's allowed them to build deeper relationships with the craftspeople who are actually creating the backpacks.
So they know exactly who's making their products, and they have a direct relationship with them. That's pretty rare these days.
And it gets to the heart of their philosophy. They're willing to invest in their people for the long haul, even if it means slower growth or the occasional out-of-stock item.
Which, let's be real, is pretty refreshing in a world obsessed with instant gratification and things being in stock 24/7.
It's a different way of thinking, that's for sure. And speaking of different, let's talk about their materials. You won't find them using any plastic-based fabrics, even if they're recycled.
Okay, so they're committed to natural materials. But how do they make sure those materials are actually sustainable? I mean, even natural materials have an environmental impact.
You're right, it's not enough to just say natural and call it a day. They break down their entire waxed canvas production process, from the cotton fields in Haryana, India, all the way to the specialized treatment in Delhi.
Wow, talk about transparency. They're not hiding anything.
Exactly. They want you to see exactly where their materials come from and how they're made. It's all about knowing the story behind the product. And speaking of stories, there's a fascinating connection to Mahatma Gandhi.
Gandhi, seriously, what does he have to do with backpacks?
It's actually pretty cool. You see, Gandhi was a huge advocate for self-reliance, and traditional Indian crafts like hand-weaving his influence helped keep those skills alive even as industrialization was taking over.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection.
And guess what Cora Spink uses for the linings of their backpacks? That's right. Hand-woven fabric made using those same traditional techniques.
So they're not just sourcing materials, they're supporting a centuries-old craft tradition. That's amazing. But it also makes you think, if Gandhi hadn't championed those skills, would they even be around today?
Exactly. It shows how interconnected everything is. History, social movements, even a simple backpack. It's all part of a larger tapestry.
Okay, that's officially blown my mind. But on a more practical note, how do they actually get their backpacks into people's hands? I mean, they seem to be doing something different with physical stores.
They are. Instead of going all in on their own retail locations or relying solely on online sales, they've focused on a wholesale model, partnering with brick-and-mortar shops around the world.
So you're saying instead of seeing a Cora Spink store on every corner, you're more likely to find their backpacks in a local boutique or an independent gear shop.
Exactly. It's a savvy strategy, for a couple of reasons. First, it allows them to tap into existing customer bases and leverage the reputation of established retailers.
That makes sense. People who already trust a particular store are more likely to check out a new brand they carry.
Exactly. And second, it gives them valuable real-world feedback on their products. They can see how people interact with the backpacks, what they like, what they don't like.
It's like a built-in focus group.
Precisely. And they actually use that feedback to refine their designs and make sure they're meeting the needs of real people.
It's funny we've been talking about sustainability ethics, even Gandhi, but at the end of the day, there's still a business that needs to sell backpacks. And this retail strategy, it's brilliant.
It really is. They've found this sweet spot between traditional retail and the online world. They get the benefits of both without the drawbacks of being completely reliant on one or the other.
I'm looking at an article here about their decision to go this route, and they talk about how it allows them to stay true to their values even as they grow.
And that's a key takeaway here. It's possible to scale your business without compromising what you believe in.
It's like they're saying we're not going to sacrifice our principles just to sell a few more backpacks.
Exactly. And that kind of integrity is increasingly rare these days. Most companies are so focused on the bottom line that they lose sight of the bigger picture.
But not Cora Spink. They've got their priorities straight.
They do, and that's why I think their story is so inspiring. They're proving that you can be successful without selling your soul.
You know, it's funny. We start talking about backpacks, and I had no idea we'd end up talking about Gandhi and the future of business.
Right.
It really goes to show you how much thought Cora Spink puts into every aspect of their company.
Yeah, it's not just about the backpack, is it? It's about the entire philosophy behind it. And that's what makes them so unique.
Yeah, like joining a movement. Speaking of which, they're really open about the challenges they face. Remember that part in the blog post about occasional out-of-stock items?
Oh, yeah.
They're upfront about the fact that their commitment to ethical production sometimes means things move a little slower.
Well, it's true. And it's refreshing, isn't it, in a world where we're conditioned to expect everything instantly.
Totally.
They're saying, hey, sometimes it takes a little longer to do things the right way. Are you with us?
It's like they're giving you, the consumer, a choice.
Yeah.
You can have the instant gratification of fast fashion, or you can choose a Cora Spink backpack and know that you're supporting a company that aligns with your values.
And that's a powerful message. They're showing the world that it's possible to build a successful business while staying true to your principles. They're not perfect. No company is, but they're actively trying to make a difference.
So what's the takeaway for listeners? What can we learn from a company that makes backpacks?
I think Cora Spink offers a blueprint for a more conscious way of consuming.
Okay.
By choosing to support companies that prioritize people and the planet, you're casting a vote for a better world.
It's like they're saying every purchase is a chance to make a statement.
Exactly. What if every time you bought something, whether it's a cup of coffee or a new pair of shoes, you thought about where it came from and who made it where in? What if you knew that your purchase was supporting fair wages, sustainable practices, and a commitment to quality?
That's a pretty compelling thought. It makes you realize that even something as simple as buying a backpack can be a powerful act.
Absolutely. And the more people who choose to support companies like Cora Spink, the more those values will become the norm.
So next time you're in the market for a new backpack, remember Cora Spink. They're proof that you don't have to choose between style, functionality, and making a difference. You can have it all.